U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says President Donald Trump will walk away from trying to broker a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine within days. This unless there are clear signs that a deal can be struck. His warning came as he left Paris following meetings with European officials and coincides with some signs of progress in U.S. talks with Ukraine. Let's take a listen to what he said.
We'd like them to remain engaged. I think they can help us. I think the UK and France and Germany can help us move the ball on this and get this closer to a resolution. I thought they were very helpful and constructive with their ideas. So we welcome their input. We welcome their involvement. We think it's important. There are probably elements of this as well. I always remind everybody that part of the sanctions against Russia, many of them, are European sanctions that we can't lift if that's ever to be part of a deal. So they're going to have to be involved no matter what. It's their continent. This is happening on the continent of Europe. And so obviously European powers will care deeply about what happens. So they have a stake in this, and we recognize it. And but in the end, I think we all want the same thing.
Well, the U.S. Vice President JD Vance is in Rome today for talks with Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, fresh off the Italian Premier's visit to the White House just yesterday. Meloni is the first European leader to lead a charm offensive to meet with President Donald Trump since he imposed sweeping tariffs on the EU bloc. The U.S. Vice President on his visit, meanwhile, is expected to visit the Vatican with hopes for an audience with Pope Francis to mark Easter. Well, let's take us now to U.S. Vice President JD Vance.
I want to update the Prime Minister on some of the negotiations between Russia, Ukraine, and also some of the things that have happened. Even in the past 24 hours, we think we have some interesting things to report on, of course, in private. So these negotiations, I won't prejudge them, but we do feel optimistic that we can hopefully bring this war, this very brutal war, to a close. I also, of course, want to talk to the Prime Minister about some of the economic relationships, very important between Italy and the United States. But, of course, we're having some big trade negotiations between not just Italy and the United States, but the whole European Union.
Well, for more on that, let's bring in Arturo Varvelli. He's the head of the Rome office at the European Council on Foreign Relations. It's great to have you with us on the program today. First, I wonder what your read is on the primary purpose of this visit by JD Vance and the key takeaways to come out of this meeting with Meloni.
Yeah, no, this is important, two important meetings, the yesterday meeting and the tomorrow meeting. And I think Giorgia Meloni is walking a tightrope, between Europe and U.S. On one hand, she wants to maintain strong ties with Brussels, to keep Italy influential in the EU. On the other hand, she's clearly investing in a close relationship with Washington. I think this isn't just diplomacy. It's a sort of smart political survival, keeping options open on both sides of the Atlantic. I think the meeting, the yesterday meeting with Donald Trump in particular, went very well because it seems to maintain the political line of support for Ukraine and Zelensky. I'm talking about Meloni, and also because it eventually succeeded in moderating Trump, who yesterday appear much more relaxed toward Europe and a negotiation with the EU. So Meloni tried to manage to get confirmation of the US-EU meeting in June in Italy on the sidelines of the NATO summit. And this allowed Meloni to show herself as a bridge builder in Europe. And this was, I think, the main goal of the Meloni policy at the moment.
Now, continuing on what you just said about the war in Ukraine, Vance said in the meeting today that he's optimistic about bringing that war to a close. Now, Meloni is a bit tricky to place for European leaders, isn't she? Because she's a supporter of Ukraine and yet not exactly a pro-EU. So given this, what's the role she can play in swinging between Brussels and Washington? I mean, can we say that she's an ally for Donald Trump in Europe?
Yeah, for sure, Meloni is a good ally of Donald Trump in Europe. Meloni has tried to rebrand herself internationally, I think, from a sort of nationalist to a reliable Western leader. And I think at the same time, her warm gesture toward Trump hint at where her political instincts still lie. It's a careful dance between ideology and realpolitik. And the reality is that Italy needs both the EU and US. Meloni's method to avoid alienating either Washington or Brussels is to try to demonstrate that the West, beyond the controversies, the current controversies, is alive and united. And this is the only condition through which Italy can gain time to remedy its own dependency and weaknesses, not because Italy has a lot of dependencies, from defense to natural gas, etc. So yesterday Meloni launched the slogan, "Make Western Great Again." I think it seems to me to be an attempt to be catchy with Trump. I personally believe that this Western dream is a bit of fiction, an illusion, and that she underestimated Trump's collapse of credibility with Europeans in particular. We still see what happens, but perhaps that is the Meloni real mistake. But for sure, Italy has the interest to try to be a bridge between the two shores of the Atlantic, and also try to maintain the political position that Meloni had in the past 2 years towards Ukraine, because Meloni isn't like to break with Europe on key issues like Ukraine, like tariffs, etc. She's still likely to maintain her usual balancing act, align herself with Trump and figures like JD Vance on cultural and the ideological topics, while at the same time keeping one foot firmly planted in Brussels. This is a difficult exercise, but at the moment is the mission of Meloni.
Right. And speaking of JD Vance, we're hearing that he's hoping for a brief encounter with the Pope, which would also become, the focal point of his visit to Rome. So what kind of a message is he hoping to convey with this potential meeting?
I think that they try to give a new impulse to Europe. That is not, they are not talking about value, but is more identity connotation of Europe, because they firmly, both Meloni and Vance, believes that that Europe needs a more identity, more a cultural identity in the sense of Christian, white, etc., with traditional values, etc. So I think that in this way, JD Vance meeting with the Pope try to implement this kind of politics. I don't know if the Pope is agree with this, probably not, but they try to use, in particular JD Vance, to use this meeting for give a strong impulse to the American politics towards Europe in that direction.
All right, Arturo Varvelli, the head of the Rome office at the European Council on Foreign Relations. It's great to hear your thoughts today. Thank you so much for your time.